Hey, what's happening, y'all? It's me coming back at you again with another vid. Well, I'm going to make this short and sweet. As you guys may have seen, the widely inevitable result of the Canelo Alvarez versus Rocky Fielding super middleweight clash. Canelo Alvarez debuted at super middleweight. Well, actually, his official debut. He did fight there at a catchweight against Chavez Jr. Early last year. Catchweight 164.5 pounds or 165, however you want to call it, but it is what it is. So very crushing and dominant display by Saul Canelo Alvarez, who is rated by most the number 2 or number 3 pound for pound best fighter in the world, whatnot. So Rocky Fielding, I mean, he did try his best, even though this fight only lasted, which was 3 rounds. Very predictable the way he keeps his high guard. He leaves his body exposed. He doesn't utilize his reach very well, and he doesn't use his height at all. And the style of Rocky Fielding was tailor-made for Canelo Alvarez, which was very predicted. And for the life of me, I don't understand why in the world did his corner tell him to move away from Canelo Alvarez, try to fight off the back foot, try to use your reach, jab your way, keep him at distance so that way you don't give him a chance to come inside and throw those body shots. And that's where Canelo Alvarez is extremely dangerous when he fights up close. And to be fair, Canelo Alvarez is very good at fighting his distance from short range, even though he doesn't really have a long reach. But it is what it is. The one thing you can say about Canelo is that he's a very smart technical fighter. He does possess the adequate ring IQ after the Mayweather fight. He knows how to cut off the ring a lot better. He's worked on his foot movement, even though he's a little bit slower on his feet, but he has improved on his foot movement and his footwork after that Mayweather fight, and that was pretty much a long time ago, about 5 years ago. But it is what it is. So, very good performance, which was predicted by Canelo Alvarez. I mean, it was a great attendance in the crowd at Madison Square Garden, close to over 21,000, which pretty much was a sellout. The undercard wasn't that spectacular. Ryan Garcia was pretty much the featured fighter on the undercard, which he did display pretty good performance. Whatnot, and one of the fights I was looking forward to, which was very disappointing, was David Lemieux versus Toriano Johnson, which was been a very good slugfest at middleweight, but that fight got canceled due to the fact that Lemieux was hospitalized with dehydration. So, which I will get to right about now, because rumor mill is that Canelo's next fight, which is Cinco de Mayo next year, will be against David Lemieux. That's the rumor that's been going around, and Oscar De La Hoya has ruled out any possibility of Canelo fight Danny Jacobs or a Gennady Golovkin trilogy fight on that holiday. Now, Danny Jacobs did walk into the ring and confront Canelo Alvarez, but it wasn't really a confrontation that you would get excited about. It was just more of a gradual approach, whatnot, but let's just hope for the better, man, that fight be next, because that'll be definitely a good fight that the world wants to see. Because Danny Jacobs is the IBF middleweight champion of the world. He is the other title holder, and Canelo Alvarez, this team has mentioned that they do intend to go back down to 160 after this one-off fight with Rocky Fielding. Now, does that mean will he be stripped of the regular WBA super middleweight title? Even though I don't call that a real title, that's just a mandatory belt to the actual champion, who is Callum Smith, who is the number 1 guy in that division. So we'll see. The one thing I want to also point out about the Rocky Fielding performance is that Sergio Moore, who actually is a good commentator, by the way, he just couldn't understand, if you're getting hurt by the body like that, why don't you just jab your way into a few rounds so that you could buy some time to recover and not try to fight inside? Just like, why are you continue to fight this guy inside while he's hurting you? You're outgunning the inside. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what, like I said, it just, spirited performance by Rocky, but clearly outmatched, clearly outgunned. I know I've repeated that many times. Where does he go from here? I don't know. I did stay on the hangout, EJ's hangout with the other guys, with Nyota and Low Plays Battle, Dwayne, and who else was on there? Edge Note. Shout out to those guys. I did state that Rocky was going to make $3 million for the fight. I may have to go ahead and retract that. I misread a report where I believe he was making $3 million, but that's not the case. I don't know what he's making, but let's just safe to assume that he's making something around that neighborhood. It has to be, obviously he's getting $1 million purse, but more than likely it is between $1, maybe $3 million. But we'll have to wait and see until a report comes out to confirm that. But obviously this is the most he's ever made. He'll be, I don't think he'll be fighting for a while, whatnot. So we'll see where his future pans out after this fight. As far as the zone and their expectations concerned, I know this is Canelo Alvarez's debut on the streaming platform. I know their goal is to try to promote Canelo Alvarez as a fighter who is a pay-per-view caliber, who is a very, very, he was a pay-per-view. Excuse me, as I was saying, I was a little distracted there. Their whole mantra, their whole marketing scheme for the zone is to lure the casual the norm boxing fanatics who are very, very familiarized with Canelo Alvarez, lure them away from the pay-per-view landscape, as you want to call it, and say, hey, look, we have a pay-per-view star who you could come over and watch for nearly free for 1 month, and you only pay $10 a month to watch him fight. That's great, but the problem is that with that situation is that you have to go ahead and revisit that contract, which I may have to do another video on, but maybe I can get through this the best way I can regarding that contract. I want to slightly reevaluate that because it's an 11-fight deal, $365 million that runs through 5. Sorry, I almost broke a frame here, guys, but I caught it just in time. But anyways, again, reevaluating this contract. It's an 11-fight deal worth $365 million, which is the most lucrative contract in fighting history, as they say, whatnot, or sports by that matter. I'm gonna have to go back and revisit that theory, whatnot, or that claim, I should say. But anyhow, Canelo's guaranteed at least $36 million per fight, and this is going to run to 5 years. Now, I've always I've looked into this, and I looked into this very carefully, and you try crunching the numbers and say, well, and I have to conclude this, that based off what we've seen, and yes, they had a great attendance coming out tonight. Great, they had, they're going to do okay at the gate, but the gate is not going to be enough to offset the money they're hashing out for Canelo Alvarez, that they're forking for him. So the only way you can make that back is having a pay-per-view platform to host his fights. Now, the zone, their goal is that, well, you know what, Canelo may be so popular to the point we may not need that scheme. Why not bring a pay-per-view star over to our platform where people don't have to pay a ridiculous price, which is nearly $90 to watch his fights? Let's bring that crowd over. Let's give them a free month of service, give them a free fight with the Rocky Fielding, and then they'll end up paying $10 a month to watch him fight. Which is almost equivalent to almost what, if you do the math, or on a calendar year, that's about $108, right? But the question is Canelo Alvarez only fights twice a year. So, yeah, if you do the math, since his fights are ranging about $80-$90, and that's 2 years, that's about $180. So the consumer is saving about $60 a year. So which if you market it that way, that'd be great. Now, the only problem with that is that you're going to have many consumers that are going to end up canceling their service, then they're going to resubscribe, and then they're going to end up canceling. But the problem is that some of these people are going to end up streaming more than they should if they're going to keep doing that, number one. And number two, the streaming apps are not available in most places, particularly in rural America, which they should be, because in those areas, broadband is not available. And people who live in those areas who may be fond of boxing to some degree, they go to local bars and watch fights. So, like on pay-per-view, that's where the cable companies or the satellite providers come in. So, I don't know, man. The thing is that they're going to need a boatload of subscribers to make this work. I know for the short term they're going to maybe losing money for maybe first 2 or 3 fights, maybe. But the fact is that based off the numbers that they're going to need to kind of offset, try to help pay for his contract, which is $36 million per fight, which is $72 million a year, by the estimates, they're going to need almost 10 million subscribers per year, even 8 million to kind of, to help pay that contract. If that's for them to break even at least, but to make some profit off of his fights, they're going to need at least 10 million paying subscribers per year. They're going to need that. So it'll be interesting to see how many subscribers they've gained from this fight. And I don't know, man. This fight was not really promoted, so it wasn't really promoted aggressively. So it'll be interesting to see what these numbers look like after this fight. It'll be very interesting. As far as the viewership figures are concerned. And someone made a comment about me being, oh, you must be an accountant with the Zone since you're talking about numbers, this, that, and the third. Look, it's just a catch-22, okay? It's very, 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 it's logical sense. Given the fact that if you look at the article that was released on Boxing Scene, by the way, even the writer who's putting them, who's crunching the numbers in and putting this together cannot figure this out. It just doesn't make any sense based off this current mechanism in their platform that they're running here. Is that it's almost literally impossible to pay out this man's contract based off what they're doing here, based off of their marketing scheme. The only way they can do it is they're going to have to change their scheme and introduce a pay-per-view platform. They're going to have to do it. See, their whole scheme is that let's bring Canelo Alvarez over to show the American audience that the pay-per-view market is dead. That's not necessarily true now, given the fact of the result of the Wilder and Fury fight. That's not necessarily true. People will pay for a pay-per-view fight, or even Canelo Alvarez and Gennady Golovkin 1 and 2. People will pay to watch a pay-per-view fight if they're going to get the result that they're expecting. And those 3 fights did deliver what they expected. Other than Mayweather-Pacquiao, which was a dreadful fight. Terrible fucking fight. But the fact is that the pay-per-view market is not dead, as I thought it was going to die out, but it doesn't seem like it's going to go anywhere anytime soon. So, yeah, I really hope for the best for the Zone. And some people are going to say, well, you're hating on the Zone, Dan, because you're bringing this up. I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm just bringing out logic here. And if you don't believe me, I'm being very, very impartial here, because if you look at my previous videos 3 years ago, I was making the same claim about Heyman and his PBC platform and his structure, how he launched it. I said numerous times, like, you know what, if he's going to keep putting on showcases where you're seeing horrible matchups, nobody's going to watch that. Nobody's going to watch that. People are going to be tuned off on that. And guess what happened? Heyman had to scale back. He lost revenue on the PBC in the first year, and he had to change his platform strategy on the PBC, where he had to match his guys tough. And that's what's happening for the last 2.5 years. But anyways, the Zone can learn from this as well. Let's just hope for the best, and it'll be interesting to see what those numbers look like when they come out. Let me know what your thoughts about this. I'm out. Peace.